Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The Vortex.
Real Talk with Kevin episode on the Verbal Vortex show, and we're continuing Black history. Let's before we get in too deep, let's do our notifications to everybody. All right, so basically, we decided this time to give people what a lot of people keep just associating with Black history all the time, which is the Transatlantic Slave Trade. I find a lot of people always want to jump to that issue, to that mindset. So we kind of just both said, you know what, let's talk about that then. So yeah, we got I've got a few questions. We're just gonna talk about our thoughts and feelings on the matter, and we want you to get involved too. Yeah? All right. So let me just do some more of these notifications and I'll stop and kick back and we can get on with some of that real shit. What were you saying though, Kev?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
Just happy Black History Month still going on. You know, the slave trade's a very emotive subject, man.
Yeah.
You know, I think more recently with Lenny Henry talking about reparations,
Right.
it's become even more emotional in the minds of a lot of people that don't agree with reparations for whatever reason, you know, so.
Right, and you know what, yeah? I'm glad you said that because I had a question here about reparations, and I think maybe out of them we can start off with that. So the question that I had, yeah, was talk to us about, maybe not naming them because I don't know if you know them like that, but I'm saying there was families recently, you know, whose previous family members were owners of slaves. And they've recently been recompensated for their so-called losses. Yeah? Whilst Black people, we can't get a sit down to talk about reparations, or people will mock and laugh off the idea of reparations. What can you tell us about that, and what's your mindset about that situation?
You know, there's a big disparity in regards to generational wealth more than anything else. I think if you look at the slave trade and look at the economics behind it and how much some people amassed a mad abundance of wealth,
Yeah.
and others had a hard time even getting on the starting block out of slavery,
Yeah.
you can see there's a deep inequality. I think there was laws and policies, etc., and they'd got this compensation. That's done. Finding out after George Floyd's death that people were paying, you know, it's coming out of taxpayers' money till 2015 was a bit of a mind bender. So I'm working as assistant head teacher at the time, dealing with a lot of good work with young disaffected people, but some of my money is going back in to give to those people that needed compensation as a consequence of the end of the slave trade. It's quite a mind-bending situation for a lot of people. So, all right, that's happened. But what was the state Black people were left in? And what financial wealth did they have? They had none. But then, with no money, traumatic states, and the continued inequalities, still made it hard for Black people to move forward economically. So, let alone the stresses that they're experiencing and the sort of barriers at any given point, whether it's trying to get a job, whether it's trying to get housing, whether it's inequalities in the criminal justice system, or whatever it was, you still see there's these real strong barriers that Black people had to go through. So I think reparations, when people think about it, some people think just give Black people free money, or they don't deserve money. We didn't have a role in that in present day.
Yeah.
But it's about the impact of that on the lives of people generationally over time. So what has it done? It's created a situation where black people have had to fight to even get on the starting block in regards to jobs or whatever. We've had to work our way up from, so we'll start from like 1948 and Windrush. From then, we've had to struggle to sort of permeate every element of black British employment. Yeah, fighting, civil rights fighting, Black Panther fighting. People don't even know that was going on over here. Getting into politics, then trying to create or what's the word now? Sort of what's wrong with me today? Sort of contribute towards pushing policy forward that support black people, whether it's the Race Relations Act 1965, 1968, Anti-Discrimination Act, trying to get on an equal playing field, but it still hasn't happened. Black people are still suffering. I mean, there's lots of different people suffering, but we're talking about as a consequence of the slave trade. Yeah. So I think reparations, no, you're not just going to give black people money. There should be an idea that what happened with compensating slave masters was wrong. Really, if we're living in an age where people are much more enlightened thinkers than before and thinking about human rights, people are politically correct nowadays. So I'd put that in the category of political incorrectness. If you can't see that people should be compensated in a certain way because of their plight and the suffering over generations and the fight and the struggle with a lack of generational wealth, no money could be passed on, so you've got to start from like beneath the ground and then come out of the ground and start existing. There's something wrong morally. The moral codes are a bit wrong, but the money itself, like a lot of people are always saying, you know, at their most racist, go back to your country, wherever that is. Yeah, I was born here, you was born here. Yeah, ultimately this is our country, but we know where our heritage lies. Right. Yeah, but if you don't want to give people money on the level where you think, all right, they need to spend it, they're going to spend it on mad things, and there's always these stereotypes about black people, what are going to do, buy cars and jewelry and da-da-da. Yeah. Give them the money to go back to their country then. If that is what underpins, if those are the thoughts that underpin the reparations, giving out reparations, then give them enough money to go back to the Caribbean or Africa or wherever, buy some land and reside there, if that's what's wanted, you know what I mean? If reform are coming in, and there's a certain feeling with the talks of Nigel Farage and reform, then do that for black people. I'm sure for those people that want black people out of the country, that'd be good for them to give out reparations, or at its best, provide money to enhance and train people in the education system to bring back more equality. Support black people in businesses so they can grow their own businesses in Britain, you know. So you can use the money productively. They could siphon out the money to be used in a productive manner. But at the moment it sounds like all too much, because how many other groups of people have received reparations and black people still haven't? Even an apology is hard. Look how long that took to happen. Even with the Aboriginal people, giving out an apology is hard work. But that says a lot about the powers that be and how they're thinking about things and how they're thinking about a certain demographic. Yeah,
I'll say it does say a lot about the individuals involved. I just personally think in their minds they can't do that, because in any which way, shape or form they help you, I think this is just my guess, that their mindset is based on what will happen if they rise up in the sense of better themselves, get a better education, you know, formulate a stronger nation. Just how China has, you know, like China was at one point, people was laughing at China, and didn't think China had anything to offer. Now China is one of the most strongest nations on the planet. And that sends fear, that puts fear in a lot of other nations.
Yeah. And I think there are theorists out there that talk about the lower percentage of the white demographic in the world. They use sort of trickery with words like ethnic minorities, when really it's a global ethnic majority.
Yeah.
And the diluting of the white race, so to speak. And you can see how diversity and how, especially in Britain as well, there's a lot of mix, and how there could be the eradication of the white race over time. What happens when black people have got money and more wealthy and, interacting with people on a different level? What could happen then in regards to structures of families?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that also people at a different level think about. So.
All right. Just to kind of weave it back into the title, which is, we're talking about the Transatlantic Slave Trade, people, as it's Black History Month. So all of those watching, if you've got any questions, send them in. My question to you, Kev, is how did the Transatlantic Slave Trade transform African social structures, gender roles, and family systems, both immediately and across generations?
Well, let me talk about the start of the slave trade, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, people have this. Some people that don't know about slavery, there was slavery all the time. From the time people started thinking in a more structured manner. Slavery was a thing in Africa. People will always say, "Yeah, but Africans had slaves." Yeah, they did, out of war.
Yeah.
Those captured could ascend in the ranks of that society, in that kingdom, in that ancient time, and become part of. If a Kemite captured a Axiomite, or a couple of them, then next minute they could be integrated into Kemite society. It's not a problem. So slavery itself is a classical practice. The Greeks had slaves, the Romans had slaves, the Norwegians had slaves, the Dutch had slaves. Everyone had slaves. I mean, there's a Vidias Polio. There was a Roman guy that had slaves that when he got mad, he fed his slaves to the fish.
That's mad.
So there's some mad levels of slavery, but slavery in itself, as we know, as a transatlantic slave trade, started in 1441. With history, there's always different dates, but that's the main date that I know of, 1441 or 1444.
Yeah.
Well, so the story goes, there's two stories. Well, so King Henry the Navigator of Portugal, he either sent Anton Gonzalez down the west coast of Africa, or he was just doing his adventuring, looking for seal skins or whatever down the west coast. Now he come across some black people and some gold about, and thought, it'd be good to take King Henry back some stuff. He might be impressed. And Tristano, another adventurer, joined him. They captured some people, brought them back. Bam, here was King Henry the Navigator of Portugal. There's some good stuff. So then Nicholas V, the Pope, enacted a papal official decree stating that, you can have full reign and roll out and go and do that stuff. So that was really the early beginnings of the slave trade. Then, it's the whole process of it. There's sort of, it's like a Russian doll. So there's 3 stages, and outside of that there's 3 stages. There's a manufacture and trading bit, those 3 stages, from England to Africa to the Americas and back to England again. And then there's that actual slave 3 stages, so the capture and walk, the middle passage and the seasoning.
Yeah.
So to give an example of that, that's why it's so important to read books like Black and British David Olusoga, because he talks about Bunce Island in some depth, the slave factory they used to have down there, and they had quite a few slave factories. So imagine now you're just chilling out, you're having a good time with your family in Africa, but they're looking to get some slaves. So they roll up on your family straight away. They only want people that can work. So they kill the little kids, the infants in front of you, and then they kill your grandparents in front of you. Already you're going to be suffering from some PTSD. You don't know what's going on. These people are talking mad language you can't understand, and then chain you up, chain your wife up, chain your older kids up, whatever. So you've just seen this death and destruction go on, and then afterwards they've got you in some mad chains, Hannibal Lecter face mask or whatever, and they're walking you 150, 200 miles to the beach to get on the ship. So already there's a problem with the family structure, yeah? You know, as a man that defends his family, you're sort of emasculated then, innit? You can't look after your family, yeah? Things have gone very bad all at one time and people have got murdered, so you're already having problems. The woman might be thinking like, oh, my man can't, not at that point because they're all in crisis, but later on as the slave trade progresses and the slave master's the guy with more power, then that distinction becomes more evident because you can't look after me as a man anymore. The slave master's like the husband, the distorted husband. But anyway, you get captured, you get walked to the ship, and then you take a little travel down to Bunce Island, say that slave factory. They get you off the ship, they split you apart, men are over there, women are over there, and ironically it's sort of like a contradiction, and it's mad hell, but then they'd have like a grand mansion with people smoking cigar and drinking rum and playing golf in the back,
having a good time,
waiting to make some good money. So the slaves, all right, they're in chaos in their mind psychologically. The women are on one side, they're processing them, checking them over, doing whatever. According to David Olusoga, in the place where they've got the women held, there was a room off of that was supposedly the rape room for women. But before the slaves can come to their senses, that's the thinking, they'll have to process them, get them back on the boat and get them to the Americas. So they'd get them back out, people will come and have a look at them, see if they're any good, then they'd walk them back down the beach, brand them. You know, even those practices there, you're taking the mickey. So brand them with maybe RAC, the Royal Africa Company, or Duke of York, and then get them back on the boat. And then that's when the Middle Passage starts. So you had the capture and walk, the killing of the family, walking down and then getting. That was the process, and I just added Bunce Island in to show that part of that history. You know, that was part of it. Then the Middle Passage, the deck that you can't stand up on. So you're beneath the deck, but wherever you are, you can't stand up. It's so low. You're packed in like sardines. It's hot as hell. You got a 6 to 8 week trip up to the Americas. No toilet, and there might be a toilet, but more than likely no toilet facilities. What's happening for the 8 weeks down there in the heat?
Defecation, and urination, mate.
Women have periods. What's happening down there?
Yeah. Everything's happening down
8 weeks, you're saturated in that. Now, remember, you're confused and going through a lot. You might end up killing the person next to you. Someone might end up killing you because there's madness going on. Some people are turning mad down there.
Of course.
Some people are trying to jump off. Some people are trying not to eat. Then they're trying to force feed you, break your teeth. Yeah. Hammer out your teeth, force feed you. There's even talks about them because they might have dysentery and people are going toilet too much and got the runs, and they plug up their bum with cork and all kinds of mad practices. But it's hell down there for the 8 weeks. So finally, if you survive, you get to the Americas.
Yeah.
But to make you subservient, to say the least, they beat you down for a year or 2 years. That's called a seasoning.
A seasoning?
Yeah. So, yeah, you're getting real whipped up and broken down psychologically and physically, so that you don't revolt in any way, and you can start putting in that work.
Yeah.
So that was really the case. But I think once you hit the plantations, that's when the real depth of family disintegration started happening.
Right.
And the man's emasculated and can't look after his family. He can't look after his wife. He can't look after his daughter. His wife's getting raped on a regular basis sometimes.
Right.
His daughter's getting raped on a regular basis. Already your masculinity's dented. For the woman, what can you do for me? Yeah, it's strange because as the man, you're sort of in sorrow and bereavement of the losses, but you're also in this sort of psychological trauma of how the family can't function and what you can't do anything for me. My missus keeps on getting raped, and then you might have mad ideas of that she's enjoying it. Like psychologically, you'd be going through different states. Imagine your wife comes back one time and she's traumatized, and after a year of that, she comes back normal. She's become desensitized, and you think, what, are you enjoying it with the slave master? So it's madness. Your daughter's looking at you away because you can't stop her getting raped because of the initiation into manhood for the slave master's son. He'll come at 16 or whatever and maybe take your 13-year-old away. So psychologically it's complex. The roles for man and woman, the masculinity strain, and her femininity is eaten up through violence and rape. You know, it's mad. It's a mad situation. So the situations like this, how can you, over 400 years, and educators, I've talked about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, the impact of that on people's behaviour.
Yeah.
Now on the plantation you had to adapt to a mad way of life. You had to duck and dive and lie. Even with, you know, there's a thing in black people's households where sometimes parents put down their children.
Right.
Yeah, or it's seemingly like cuss them. But on the plantation that happens sometimes. Because if the slave master came up and had some intentions to back up the slave master, you'd say, oh no, little Timmy or Jenny, she's stupid, sir, blah, blah, blah. You see that played out in modern day as well in black households or on the street. Even in regards to women, they'll say that black women say, you know, and I haven't always come across that, but, you know, I've seen it sometimes. We'll say, what can you do for me? You can't do nothing. Da, da, da. But on the plantation that was happening, the man couldn't do nothing for her. So sometimes there's parallels in regards to what went on the plantation and how our behaviours are now. Even in shops, old school black people, you'll always see them with their kids close to them. Yeah, and then you might see the little white child running around Tesco back in the day or whatever. And black people will be like, look how they've got their children running around the shop. But on the plantation, white children can do what they want. Black children couldn't do that because they could get caught out and next minute something would happen to them. So they'd always keep their children close to them because they had to protect them. So it's quite strange how the trauma has translated to modern day and passed down into these sort of behavioural
it's turned into tradition in a way.
Yeah.
You know, they even say that, a lot of people say that, you know, like, I know not all people do this, but a lot of black people at one particular point in time, we used to get licks. And then a lot of people would say that, you know, that stems off the back of slavery, because back then we used to get a lot of licks for the smallest of things. And I don't know how true or associated that is, but...
Well, and also beating your children so they didn't get in trouble. Imagine you've got a child now, because not all children are docile, are they? Some are excitable. Now you've got a child with an excitable personality living on a plantation. You've got to teach them what not to do. But you've learnt the practice of beating from the slave master. But now to keep your child in order, you've had to beat them so they don't get eaten up by the slave master or any other parties on the plantation. So it's like me, I've never beat my children.
Right.
I won't. For one of the shared reasons as well, I know where that practice comes from.
You don't want to pass that on
No.
as well. Yeah. Talking about, you know, trying to keep it there in a way, I want to ask you, can we trace direct links between the rise of the modern European capitalism and profits from the slave trade? If so, What are the clearest examples?
Of the profits.
Kind of like, like just seeing where a lot of these corporations, conglomerates, I don't know which particular ones, but can you see any like...
I think what happened, because the Industrial Revolution sort of went hand in hand, the building up, the moving from agrarian life, from the feudal system and farming and the serfs and all that. There was just a transition in it as Britain started getting an influx of money, and the Industrial Revolution started happening, and machinery started happening. That built up Britain to what it was, how Britain existed or exists now. As a sort of strange, not superpower, but still with some notoriety in regards to its global recognition, so to speak. That came, everyone says Britain, not so much Great Britain, but it did become great in regards to its power and its dominance globally. I mean, after the War of Spanish Succession, the treaty that was enacted, the Utrecht Treaty in 1713, that gave Britain nearly the monopoly on slavery. So they could transport 4,800 slaves per year for 30 years. The money they were getting on that's mad. So it enabled them to build up Britain, and contribute towards fighting wars, having a good economy. The rich profited immensely off it. But, there were still quite basic thinkers, Looking good seemed to be a good thing, and having the good things, having the coffee, having the sugar, whatever, good cloth, blah, blah, blah. So I think the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure of Britain at some point was at its peak compared to the rest of the world.
An interesting question for you now. What role did law, religion and science, and we call that racist pseudoscience, play in justifying the normalizing slavery in Europe and in the Americas?
Man, the laws were actually mad. I mean, there's so much of that in regards to the black codes, the slave codes, Jim Crow law. All these things were implemented to keep black people in a certain state with no freedoms, really. So across the Caribbean, you had the slave codes. In America, you had the Jim Crow law and segregation. Over here, you had the color bar, etc. But underpinning that, it was like immigration laws back in the 60s. And that, they were carefully manipulated after a while not to let a certain section of society into the country that had enough, especially after Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech. And what's crazy, he was the Secretary for Health. How can you, the Secretary for Health, give out such a speech of maybe inciting racial disturbance, you know what I mean? To a certain, you're the head of, the Secretary of Health. So there were laws that were underpinning not allowing black people to come into the country, or black people not to vote in America, or a lot of different laws that really stopped black people accessing certain things or having certain freedoms. In regards to religion and the curse of Ham, that was a justification really of slavery to a certain extent. They had this idea already that they needed to civilize black people because they were savage and beast-like, these tribal people with spears, bones through their noses and spears, in the old comic strips in comics, and even in TV depictions like Love Thy Neighbor, you would see a pot with explorers in it and these tribal men just about to cook them. So they had this idea that they needed some salvation and they needed teaching by ways of Christianity. But to justify enslaving people, the curse of Ham, and Ham, one of his sons, Japheth, Shem and Ham, had seen Noah naked and Noah had cursed him. But I'm not a big Bible reader, but from my knowledge, the curse wasn't to Ham, it was to Canaan, his son. So they distorted the story in itself. But then they said because Ham was supposed to have been representing a certain set of people, African people, that they'd be in servitude.
Right.
So, all right, the Bible says that, so it's okay.
Yeah.
We can go out and do that, you know what I mean? And regards to the science part, I think it goes back as far as Gomez do Zurara, which wasn't really scientific. But what happened was that he was the royal chronicler for Prince Henry the Navigator. So he write down some stuff about Africans while it was going on. And quite derogatory, you know, they're lazy or whatever. So that was a starting point. Some people, Ibrahim Kente or Kendi, or who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist, he documents that. That could be seen as a starting point, but then with Johann Blumenbach's taxonomy that he created, you know, that superiority and inferiority started kicking in, racism started kicking in more with Europeans being seen as superior at the top, black people at the bottom. And if anyone doesn't know, he's the guy that coined the phrase Caucasian when he went and saw some people near Armenia, near the Caucasus Mountains, and thought they looked nice, so he called them Caucasians. And then Carl Linnaeus came up with one, another taxonomy. There's quite a few people, the writings of Hegel, always get his name wrong, talking about black people in a particular way. But what it was the spreading of these scientific minds that we know now as pseudo-scientific.
Yeah.
Across the globe, influential thinkers were giving out ideas, making people think they were true. You know, so what was happening globally? All right, black people are inferior. You had Sir Francis Galton talking about, and the eugenics movement talking about racial purity. You had Immanuel Kant, philosophers like that, Voltaire talking about black people in a derogatory way, like their IQs are low and they're inferior. Gandhi even said when he went to South Africa that they're troublesome and problematic and smell or whatever. He had words to say. So great minds were putting out these ideas about black people, and it was being taken on board. If someone that is knowledgeable is putting out an idea and a lot of people are starting to do it, what are you going to start thinking? And then that's underpinned by children's literature. So even in the bedroom, you've got Enid Blyton's 10 Little Niggers. Yeah, the parents are reading that, tonight I'm going to read to you 10 Little Niggers.
That's mad,
right?
That's what I'm saying.
And Enid Blyton, I used to like the Famous Five. I used to watch her program. I didn't know she was writing all that. But of Mice and Men and other literature that was going on. In advertising, I mean, some of the most horrendous advertising I've seen in America on shoe polish even, just nigger brown, you know, let alone the distorted minstrel looking faces and whatever of black people, the watermelon melon eating fried chicken eating depictions in Hollywood back in the day and over here even, you know, and it's a crime. I used to watch the Jim Davison show, as a young black boy. I used to watch Till Death Do Us Part with Alf Garnett. I used to watch Love Thy Neighbour. I used to watch Mind Your Language. All of them were wholly racist programs that I didn't know when I was coming up. It was only the realizations I got older, and that was much older when I started getting some knowledge about black history and my identity, that I realized that these programs were racist, that they had us watching, you know, and giving it to the people that wanted it, laughing in their homes. So there was a lot going on in regards to whether it was media, whether it was science, children's literature, advertising, globally promoted this inferiority, beast-like, over-sexualized image of black people. So, and it hasn't gone. It's been imprinted in the minds of,
it's still there.
In the psychology of people now. And it's been passed down over generations. You know, if you get into the psychology of it, and especially from a psychodynamics perspective, and someone's super ego. So you got the id, the ego, and the super ego. So the id's like the wild part of you know what I mean, doing wild stuff. The ego keeps the id and the super ego sort of or keeps balance. And then the superego is like your parent, yeah, talking to you. You know that you always, especially when you become a parent, see your parent come out of you when you're parenting your own child or children. So you know something's going on. So imagine now you've been taught certain things from your parents. What's encoded in your head and what's in your unconscious about certain people, and what do you pass on to your children down the line? You know, so psychologically, from the starting point of slavery, there was a mass manipulation of everyone globally. So black people developed an inferiority complex, and white people developed a superiority complex, and it still exists today. And even if there's only a few people that can come out, that are coming out of both. The inferiority, when black people stand in white environments, sometimes they know already or feel, and that might not be the case, that they have to be a certain way. When they're driving on the road and they see the police and they have to interact, they know they have to be a certain way. You know, I don't feel that I can get out of a car if the police stop me and act like how some white people do. I've seen it firsthand. Start cussing them. I've got out in the car with someone, start talking to the police, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, don't talk to them like that. Because if I did, and the next minute we're getting back in the car and going. I'm like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot.
How did enslaved people resist on shipboard or on plantations and through culture? And why are some resistance stories privileged while the others are erased?
I think some have got more notoriety because it's like Toussaint Overture, his journey to France and learning stuff, the French Revolution and military stuff, you know, that's known, but his connection to France as well, and Haiti and Poland's involvement. There's a lot going on. I think in the Caribbean it's different. Not a lot of people know about Bassa, the Bayesian revolutionary. It's only more so now people learning about Nani. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, some people don't know about, and Dirty Bookman, some people don't know about, again from Haiti. I think when you're connected, I mean, the Haitian Revolution has notoriety as the first people to establish their independence. Yeah, so I think that has given a lot of attention to that. I don't know why. I mean, a lot of you can talk about revolt. It's like countries wanting to be looked upon their nation with pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do? You say that English abolished the slave trade. Yeah. Through lawmaking and people like William Wilberforce and Granville Sharp, Lado Equiano and Ignatius Sancho and whoever. But revolt and revolution played a big role in it ending. So to make it seem like we've done this, we might as well forget about the revolutionaries that were fighting all the time. And they couldn't put up with it any longer. They had to make a stand. So there was like, all right, there was abolitionists, there was the Industrial Revolution, and there was revolts constantly. So all three of these sort of factors contributed. It wasn't just that abolitionists said, yeah, all right, we're going to start fighting towards the abolishment of slavery, and it just happened because of that.
Yeah.
If there wasn't the Industrial Revolution, this move into factories and production, and the use of capitalism and revolts, slavery might still be going on in a particular way. But the development of humankind, and also black people at that time, had enough. Over time they'd had enough. You know, people know about Nat Turner. They ostracized Nat Turner, but he'd had enough. If he gathered out his people and went out and killed 50 or 60 white people, you know, no one's going to hear about him because in the minds of some, that's atrocious. But is it as atrocious as the treatment of black people from 1441? You know, and people like Thomas Thistlewood, who was raping up women, so much so he had syphilis nearly all the time, over 3,000 women. And he had, what was that, his practice, the Derby something, where he used to tie up a slave, that was bad, and then get another slave to defecate in his mouth and leave him there gagging, or urinate in his mouth. There's some crazy practices.
And just for the viewers watching, like, this is all documented, right?
Yeah. Thomas
so
Thistlewood. Google Thomas Thistlewood. You read up about him.
Right, because I know a lot of people, I'm not saying people are doing this, but I'm just speculating. A lot of people might be thinking, oh, what's he talking about? How does he know that? But this is something that because I know that you're an avid reader, you're a person who studies a lot, you know what you're talking about. So this is something that, everything you're talking about, they can go and check it out themselves.
Yeah. Thomas Thistlewood, check him out. You know, it's like Mary Turner. Mary Turner, she protested against her husband's hanging. All right, so they strung her up. Then they threw petrol in her and burnt her up. She was still alive. But Mary Turner was pregnant. Then they cut out a baby out of her belly and then stamped the baby to death. Like, the practices then were heinous, and they were continuous, day in and day out for hundreds of years.
Well, I was about to say, just to add on to that, like, there was a book, I don't remember what the book's called, and I'm glad we're talking about it now, because I'm going to look for it. The book is roughly worth £1,000, right? And it's solely just about the lynching of black people in America.
Something Sanctuary, it's called.
Yeah, I remember I got one as an ebook, but I thought it was that, but it's not the right one. Now this book only depicts it. It gives you like, it's got all of the postcards, because they used to have postcards, and they used to have the hangings on the postcards, and it was like festivals. With it, you know, there'll be 1,000 people in attendance to see black people being hung. So it's all the accounts of all of the hangings, the newspaper clippings with all of the stuff to do with all of that. This sort of mindset and attitude to me is diabolical. Like, for me, you know, I don't even think there's enough time for us to get into it, but it's just that it's trying to fathom the mindset of people that would actually make postcards, would sever the genitals off whoever they're going to hang and keep it on their mantelpiece like a trophy piece. You know, all because of maybe that person was of a different hue than them, or they just felt that you did something wrong that day, so they're just going to take it out on you.
And plus, he was a product.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
he was like cattle.
Yeah,
there was no respect for you as a human.
You know, tell me if I'm wrong, because I've heard this a few times. Yeah, and I don't know if this is right. But the term slave, did that first come from Slav, when they used to enslave, like, you'd see, because everything, to me, there's no such thing as white and black. This is just my point of view. There's just different hues of man. There's different genetic types of man. And back in the day, it was all tribals, right? All tribes, that's all it was, tribes. Because in white people, you have many different tribes, you have many different people. And there's even some people that will say, no, I'm not white. Oh no, I'm not. They might be on the same landmass. Yeah. It's like, for instance, I know I used to work for a Sicilian, and when I called him Italian, he went mad on me. Like, he goes, "I'm not Italian," and then, you know, I had to learn quickly. Okay, that, you know, just like we have tribes and we see ourselves somewhere, they're gonna, you know what I mean? So yeah, going back to Slav, the reason why I'm asking you that is because I remember hearing the term slave comes from Slav, for when Europeans didn't quite discover Africans at the time, and they was enslaving themselves, and they used to enslave the Slavic race a lot. Is there any truth to that?
Said. Yeah, that's what's been said. Also, I want to talk about we was talking about the cruel practices. Yeah. Now it's funny that you know, they ate Nat Turner.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So, but there's a whole book called Delectable Negro.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned that loosely last time. You want to go into that a little bit?
So it's just about the eating of black people in the Americas, on the plantation, the cooking, the seasoning up of them. They had recipes. Supposedly there's recipes in the book of how to cook people. They used to eat their penises, etc. So even in finding out, I knew there was cannibalism, but I've got to buy the book. It's on Amazon. It's £56. But to get down with that horrific side of slavery will be interesting in itself. But one important part of history, and it's funny because people don't understand, who don't read that much, the deep link between America and England and slavery. Now, if anyone knows about Bacon's Rebellion, now I take my hat off to Dr. Jacqueline Battalora. Before I found out about her, I didn't really know a precise moment where the word white was used to divide. Yeah. So, according to her, in 1961, it came out of Bacon's Rebellion. If anyone know about Bacon's Rebellion, there was a guy called Bacon. He'd been sent over here, I think from England, because he was an upstart. He was all over the place, and his family wanted him to do all right. So there was beef between him and this guy Berkeley. Bacon wanted to treat the Native American Indians a certain way and start killing them and doing mad things to them. Berkeley weren't having it. He wanted everything to go well. So there was a back and forth between Berkeley and Bacon. If you read it, you know, it's quite in depth how they were going back and forth every minute and having standoffs. One time Bacon said, "I'm going to shoot you," and Berkeley said, "Go on then," well, whatever. So, but what had happened at that time, there was black people were living sort of as indentured slaves, like the white indentured slaves that had come over from England. So they were on the same level, yeah, and they, to a certain extent, could work themselves out of slavery.
Yeah.
But what had happened is that Bacon had gathered the masses, white and black, to revolt.
Right.
Now, they'd sent back a message to London saying this is going on. But then afterwards, Dr. Jacqueline Battalora says that was the first time they used the word white. She looked through all the legal documents or whatever. There was never any reference to the word white. And it was then, to create a division, they started saying white whatever.
Yeah.
And then they gave those white indentured slaves sort of like managerial positions. So they weren't on the same slave level. But what they did, because they come out of that nastiness of, you know, of slavery, they started imposing themselves on the people that they used to be on the same level with. So 1681 is a real pivotal moment in regards to the use of the word white and it becoming something. You know, that was a device for division. You know, so have a little look. Jacqueline Battalora's got a book, I can't remember the title.
1681, yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm writing that down because, you know me, man, I'll just get my pen to work and make a song.
Yeah, I know,
do you know what I'm saying?
and it'll be a good one.
Yeah, because I just think like, well, even I think, you know, from the people that we're from, they taught a lot through stories and songs. And we never forgot those things through stories and songs. So, yeah, anyway, I was going to ask you, how reliable, I'm conscious of time, we've got maybe like 10, 12 minutes. How reliable are the primary sources that historians use, like, you know, ship logs, traders' letters, colonial records? And were voices lost? How should that shape the stories we tell?
From what I mean, I think the Americans were really good at their documenting. I don't know, it's quite weird. You know, even with Thomas Thistlewood, why would you want to document all your atrocities? But there was a lot of documentation going on. I think there was a lot of documentation going here, but I think America are quite succinct with their documentation. There was a lot that was lost. Yeah, because a lot that wasn't documented. Why would you document it to have it as evidence?
Evidence against yourself.
Yeah. So there was a lot not documented and quite a lot in America documented. There's things here documented, but not as substantial as America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe, what was the guy's name who done all those atrocities? What's his name again?
Thomas Thistlewood.
Do you reckon that he was doing that just out of sheer like arrogance, like to say this is what I'm doing and
Who knows the mindset, the psychology behind this thinking?
I don't know.
He might enjoy writing. He might have enjoyed the atrocities. He might have wanted to pass that down to someone to have a look. Who knows what he was thinking?
Saying that, yeah, how authentic is the Willie Lynch letter? Because you know what, I've come across so many people say, look, Willie Lynch didn't actually exist.
I lived by that for a little while, you know.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day when I was reading Black History, that would be a narrative that I'd spun. Yeah, you know, Willie Lynch got the horses. He created this system that kept the slave subservient, and other slave masters jumped on his teachings. And then, like, maybe a decade, 2 decades later, it was said that it wasn't true. So I don't use that anymore. Because there's other information that you don't really need one person ideology in regards to that practice to say that was going, you know, that was a starting point, because it was just going on anyway.
Because regardless if he existed or not, the topics and, you know, the orders of the day carried out in those pages are very profound to me, like where you can see kind of some of that stuff playing out today. Yeah. So for me, I think it's just an eye-opener regardless.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's like the feeding black babies, using them as crocodile bait. I don't know how true or not true it is. Social media spews out a lot, because before, when I was reading, I didn't hear about that. So sometimes social media puts out stuff and you jump on it, but you've got to research it, because you can't believe everything that social media puts out.
Yeah. So in your mindset, would you say it's more beneficial to pick up a book than to be basically social media post fed?
Yeah, definitely. Because then afterwards you be going out and having conversations with people that actually know something, and then you look like an idiot, you know, so because there's some false information that's been put out on social media. I mean, it says, and we talked about that, it's about like Septimus Severus, like, was he African, well, was he black, people want to debate. I won't get into that debate, you know, it doesn't matter, because it's like yesterday with the Cheddar Man. People want to talk about the Cheddar Man's genetics, but you know, you could talk about genetics, but sometimes you've got to understand that there's a slave master mentality that some black people have got. So even in light of certain evidence being given that show that something's black or black created, some black people still don't believe it.
They don't want to digest it.
No, they've been so manipulated over time by the white ideal and white standard that they can't even see, even with evidence in front of them, that is real. You know,
you still rebuke it.
Yeah. So it's quite hard, because, you know, people will talk about Uncle Toms, they'll talk about coons, you know, and I've talked about that in the past, and really it's about the lack of acknowledgement of the plight of black people. If you've got a black person that says, and even though whether it's the McPherson report or whatever report, that the police force is institutionally racist, why as a black person now you're so in defense of the establishment that you're saying no, it's not racist, but the facts and figures state otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, so there are people's thinking that's quite distorted, and that's where you sort of enter that realm of coonery. You know, not acknowledging that thing. Well, just because you're okay doesn't mean it's not going on for a lot of other people. You know, so it's like now I can acknowledge that some black people now, with the amount of knowledge and information they're getting on social media, they're cussing white people that have got nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe their family might have done. Not every white person has connections to the slave trade.
Of course not, yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of white people on social media getting cussed out for no reason. But that's wrong. You know, you've got to know how to use your knowledge in a productive way.
Well, look, just to tie in, we're coming up to the last few minutes. I'll say, just to tie that into the end, like, what could all manners of races like learn from Black history? What can they take away? You know, again, rather than just be spewing hate and maybe misinformation, what could they take away from today to go forward and do some right?
All right, so
things?
you know, it's hard to hear that the first original humans were black. That's always hard to hear, but it's true.
Yeah.
That depigmentation, moving out of migration out of Africa and adaptation through natural selection led to depigmentation 12 to 8,000 years ago. So we're more melanated and you're less melanated. We all have the same ancestry. If you go back all the way back, we're all of the same stock. Black people developed the foundation for most things that exist now, whether it's surgery, science, mathematics, geometry, whatever. We all exist as one people, we all bleed the same. We went through hardship, nations rise and fall. We're not inferior, yeah. It was a label that was put on us. And that we've gone through hardship and come out the other end. You've seen we've had contributions in regards to the development of humankind. We've great achievements. We've had to have resilience. We had to have resistance against mad oppression, which continues to a certain extent today. And we still strive as nice people. There's these stereotypes that have been put on us, you know, and we've been demonized. But look at the atrocities we faced, and we're still not uprising as a people to try and attack people on a global scale and get together, which could be done easier through social media. Actually, most black people just want to get on with people and be all right. You know, it's just that this division has been created and the inequalities feed a nasty feeling in some black people. You know what I mean? Because when you're oppressed, and you're feeling inequality and you're struggling, what do you project out? Animosity and hate towards, more so than the individual, a system of inequality, a system of racism. But black people are nice, yeah? You know, you can tell in how they are. They love music, they like to be alright, they like to talk on a level, yeah? They don't want to be in a situation where there's not this cohesive niceness amongst everyone, you know. So it's time for people to understand what humility is, and behaving like a human, actually, you know. And let's just get on. I said to the children when I went and talked in the school last week, I said, I wished some mad, ugly aliens came down, yeah, from somewhere, yeah, and started up on the planet. And let's see if we'd have issues regarding religion, sexuality, colour, culture, you know. We'd have to band together. Well, aren't we intelligent enough to do that now without the aliens coming down or some hardship going on?
Well, what I'll take from that is it's a deep reflection and being honest with self. You get what I'm saying? Reflection and being and having honesty and humility.
Look, it's like this, Nev. Sorry, there was a stage in my life I didn't like white people. Why didn't I like them? Because I was kept on getting hassled. I was getting stopped by the police every minute. When I was walking down the road, the lady would cross the road and hold her bag. Security guard around the shop. On more than one occasion, I've been stopped by the police and nearly gone to court. And one time I ended up getting charged with 2 counts of burglary and going to Wood Green Crown Court. So there was an animosity that was building up until I started reading and understanding that, all right, we've suffered these things, but there was also a lot of good white people that were there supporting the cause, trying to get black people out of the predicament they were in, you know, and stop those atrocities. So I have an understanding that you can get bad black people, you can get bad Chinese, you can get bad Asian, you get bad everyone. But the world how it exists still now, even though it's mad, there's still connections through love and kindness. Otherwise this world would be in chaos.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
that's the zone everyone needs to move into. I know there's social pressures, but treating the next person nice, how hard is that? Day to day. I'm still a guy that opens the door for people, even if you, look, this is how nice I am. I don't need you to say thank you. If I stop my car and you're at a zebra crossing, you're rude and you walk on, I'm that nice that I stop for you. I open the door for you and you don't say thanks. It doesn't matter because I'm that nice that I opened it for you. You can't be, I said to someone, you can't be too nice. You can't be. Nice is just being nice.
That's right. So be nice.
Be nice, people.
Yeah, so with that being said, my people, we're out. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be good and look after each other.
Be nice, be nice.
Be nice. Yeah?
Nice name.
Love, respect.
Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.